We all know the names Jesus, Buddha, those figures who reached this almost mythical level of enlightenment. But how'd they actually, do it? Break free from those same limitations we all face and tap into some, higher state of being? It's a question that keeps popping up, right?
It really does. It's a question that's echoed through human history.
Yeah.
And, thankfully, you sent over a video with some interesting perspectives on this
Mhm.
from Abraham Hicks
Yeah.
and Daryl Anka.
Channeling Bashar.
Exactly. And I was hooked right from the beginning because they jump right into this idea that both Jesus and Buddha seem to just completely trust the process of life, not looking for special techniques or shortcuts, but almost as if they knew that whatever came their way was exactly what they needed to grow.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful point. I mean, think about it. How often do we see challenges as roadblocks instead of stepping stones? These figures seem to embrace whatever life threw at them as part of their path to, enlightenment. That's so true. But it's easier said than done, isn't it? How do we actually cultivate that kind of trust in our own lives when things get messy?
Right. Well, the source material suggests that both Jesus and Buddha use their experiences to detach from suffering and find inner peace, even the difficult ones. Buddha, for example, he faced extreme poverty and hardship, yet he saw these experiences as crucial to his awakening.
Okay. That's starting to make a little more sense. So it's not about avoiding the tough stuff, but more about changing how we view it. Instead of getting caught up in the struggle, we can look for the lesson
Yeah.
or the opportunity for growth.
Exactly. It's a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And the video uses a great analogy to illustrate this. There's this anecdote about Buddha having this sudden realization that a single candle can illuminate all of creation.
Oh, yeah. I remember that part. So it's not about seeking enlightenment somewhere outside of ourselves, but about recognizing the light that already exists within us.
Precisely. Imagine a single candle illuminating a vast, dark cave. That's the power of shifting your perspective. The light's always there. It's just a matter of choosing to see it.
Wow, that's a really powerful image. It makes me think about those everyday moments that might be holding similar, illumination if we just looked at them a little differently. What are the candles in our own lives that we're overlooking?
Absolutely. And it might even be something that initially appears as darkness or difficulty. Remember, Buddha found enlightenment through facing hardship. So perhaps some of your most challenging experiences are the very things illuminating the path forward.
Okay. Now that's a perspective shift I need to work on, but the video didn't shy away from some pretty intense examples either, right? They even bring up Jesus' crucifixion as a way of talking about transcending limitations.
Yes. Yeah, it's a provocative example for sure.
Mm.
But what's interesting is that they use it to highlight the idea that our true essence is eternal and indestructible. No matter what external circumstances we face, there's a core part of us that remains untouched.
So even in the face of extreme suffering, there's this unshakable part of us that can't be broken. That's a pretty powerful concept.
It is, and it leads to a question. What are the metaphorical crosses that we face in our lives? What are those things that test our limits and force us to confront our deepest fears? And how can we tap into that same resilience and strength that Jesus exemplified to overcome them?
Wow. Heavy stuff. But then right after that deep dive into the crucifixion, they throw in this hilarious line about Jesus's last words being nailed it.
Right. A little dark humor to lighten the mood.
Yeah.
But I think it also emphasizes the importance of not taking ourselves too seriously on this path.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. It's easy to get caught up in the seriousness of seeking enlightenment and forget to find the joy in the journey.
Exactly. Humor and joy can be incredibly powerful tools for releasing resistance and embracing the present moment.
Which brings us to another point you flagged from the video, the listener's question about Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. They were curious about whether focusing on the present moment is just another belief system to get caught up in.
That's a common question.
Yeah.
And it's important to clarify that the concept of now isn't a belief, but rather a fundamental truth about reality. It's always now, regardless of what our thoughts or feelings tell us.
Okay, I get that. But how do we actually apply that in our lives? How do we stop our minds from constantly racing ahead or dwelling on the past and truly be present?
Well, it starts with cultivating awareness, paying attention to your breath, your senses, and the world around you without judgment.
So basically being more mindful.
Exactly. It's about training your mind to come back to the present moment over and over again. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes.
Got it. So we've talked about trusting the process, finding the light within, and embracing the present moment. Are we starting to get a sense of how these figures might have achieved enlightenment?
Hmm, we're definitely getting closer. But there's another layer to explore here that dives into the role of religion and leadership. And that's where things get really interesting.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued. Let's dive into that next. So we're diving into the role of religion and leadership in the context of enlightenment. What did these unconventional thinkers have to say about that?
Well, they didn't shy away from critiquing organized religion. They seem to suggest that many religious institutions have, perhaps unintentionally, steered people away from true enlightenment.
Hmm, that's interesting. But wouldn't most religions, like, claim to offer a path to enlightenment or some form of, spiritual liberation?
They do. And the source material acknowledges the good intentions at the heart of many religions, the desire to connect with something greater, to live a virtuous life. But their critique lies in the way these institutions often try to uh, impose a single rigid definition of goodness on everyone.
So instead of encouraging individuals to find their own, like, unique path, they're presented with a predefined set of rules and dogmas to follow.
Exactly. And according to this perspective, that kind of conformity can actually be a barrier to true enlightenment. They argue that real enlightenment is about aligning with your own internal compass, your own unique uh, vibrational escrow, rather than conforming to, external expectations.
Hold on. Vibrational escrow. I remember that term coming up in the video, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure I fully grasped it.
Right. It's a bit of an abstract concept.
Yeah.
But think of your vibrational escrow as your unique blueprint for fulfillment.
Yeah.
It's like this inner guidance system that's always pointing you towards what truly resonates with your soul, what brings you genuine joy and aligns with your highest potential.
Okay, that makes more sense. So instead of trying to, like, fit ourselves into a predetermined mold of what's good or right,
All right.
we should be listening to that inner guidance system.
That's the idea. They suggest that when we ignore our vibrational escrow and try to conform to external pressures, it creates disharmony and actually takes us further away from enlightenment.
It's interesting because that resonates with my own experience. There have been times when I've felt like pressured to follow a certain path or live up to certain expectations, even though, like, deep down it didn't feel right for me.
Right. That's a
Mhm.
common experience. And this source material is encouraging us to question those external pressures
Yeah.
and to trust our own inner wisdom more.
That's a powerful message. And it makes me think about the role of, leaders, especially religious leaders. The video seemed to have some pretty strong opinions on that, too.
Yes, they didn't hold back. They suggest that some leaders, whether consciously or unconsciously, try to control others in the name of religion or righteousness.
So instead of empowering their followers to find their own truth, they're trying to, like, impose their own beliefs and values on them.
That's the implication. They go as far as to say that these leaders are often projecting their own insecurities and unmet needs onto their followers.
Wow. That's a pretty bold statement. But it makes you think, doesn't it? Are there instances where following a charismatic leader might actually be leading us away from our own internal truth?
It's certainly a possibility. And that's why this source material is so insistent on the importance of uh, individual discernment. It's about recognizing that true enlightenment is an inner journey, not something that can be, given to you by someone else.
So it's not about blindly following someone else's path, but about forging your own.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming your power as the creator of your own experience, tuning out the noise of external expectations, and learning to listen to the wisdom within.
This is giving me a lot to think about. It's definitely challenging some of my assumptions about, religion and leadership.
And that's a good thing. Questioning our beliefs and exploring different perspectives is all part of the journey.
But if we're not supposed to, like, blindly follow leaders or adhere to rigid doctrines, how do we actually navigate this path to enlightenment? What does it look like in practice?
That's a great question. And luckily, the source material offers some insights into that as well. They talk about the importance of tuning into our natural instincts and recognizing the role of joy in guiding us towards our highest potential.
Okay. I'm really curious to hear more about that. Let's dive into the practical side of all of this. All right, so we've been exploring some pretty heady concepts about enlightenment, religion, and leadership. But I'm really curious about the practical side of all this. Like, how do we actually take these ideas and apply them to our daily lives?
Well, the source material actually offers some intriguing insights into that. They talk about the importance of reconnecting with our natural instincts, which they suggest many of us have been conditioned to suppress.
Oh, okay. So we've been talking about trusting our inner compass, our vibrational escrow. Is this connected to that?
Absolutely. They argue that our natural instincts are inherently aligned with that inner guidance system, but we've been taught to distrust them, to override them with societal expectations or ingrained beliefs.
That rings true for me. How many times have we talked ourselves out of doing something that felt exciting or fulfilling because we thought it was impractical or irresponsible?
Right. It's a common experience.
Hmm.
We're often told to ignore our gut feelings, to prioritize logic over intuition. But this source material flips that on its head.
Hmm.
They suggest that joy is actually a sign that we're in alignment with our true selves, with our vibrational escrow.
So instead of seeing joy as like frivolous or self-indulgent, we should be paying attention to what brings us joy and allowing that to guide our decisions.
That's the idea. It's not about pursuing, fleeting pleasures, but rather about recognizing the difference between surface level enjoyment and the deep soulful joy that comes from living in alignment with your true purpose.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects. Trusting the process, listening to our intuition, and allowing ourselves to experience joy. It's like these are all different aspects of tapping into that inner source of wisdom and guidance.
Exactly. And when we do that, when we align with our vibrational escrow,
Hmm.
it naturally leads to a more fulfilling and enlightened life.
But it's not always easy to distinguish between those fleeting pleasures and the kind of joy that truly nourishes our soul, is it? How do we get better at recognizing that difference?
It takes practice and self-awareness. Paying attention to how you feel when you engage in different activities, when you make different choices. Does it feel expansive and energizing? Or does it feel constricting and draining?
Yeah.
Your inner compass will guide you if you learn to listen.
That makes sense. It's about tuning into those subtle cues from our body and our intuition.
Precisely. And the more you practice, the more you'll start to recognize the difference between the things that bring you superficial pleasure and the things that truly light you up from within.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I'm starting to understand these concepts of enlightenment and inner guidance in a whole new way. But I also have to admit, it's a little daunting. It's like, okay, I need to trust my instincts more, listen to my joy, tap into my vibrational escrow. Where do I even begin?
Well, remember what we discussed earlier about trusting in the process. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Just start by paying attention. Notice what brings you joy. Notice when you feel that inner resistance or that sense of expansion, and trust that the path will unfold as you go.
That's really reassuring. It's not about achieving some, like, perfect state of enlightenment overnight, but rather about taking small steps, making gradual shifts in how we perceive ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly. And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to enlightenment. What works for one person may not work for another. It's about finding what resonates with you, what feels authentic and aligned with your own unique journey.
So for our listener out there, as you continue to contemplate these ideas, perhaps ask yourself, what brings you genuine, soul-stirring joy? What steps can you take, even small ones, to create more space for that in your life? What whispers is your vibrational escrow sending you?
Those are powerful questions. And the answers, as always, lie within.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to ponder. It's challenged my assumptions, sparked new insights, and left me feeling incredibly inspired to continue exploring these concepts.
And that's the beauty of these unconventional perspectives. They shake things up, make us question the status quo, and ultimately help us grow.
So to everyone listening, keep seeking, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep trusting your own inner guidance. You might be surprised at what you discover along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.